Hey, it's RJ at Built Performance, back here with a couple of SRT-4s. This one here is running this rat's nest of shit for the vacuum solenoids. And God knows what this is. I don't know why they mounted this here. It's obviously supposed to be up over here, but cool story. We're going to talk about why you don't want to run these after you're so far modified and wind up with it being a little bit like this car where there is no solenoids and the tip is in the correct place. So, as far as this car goes, as you can see, it's got an HKS blow-off valve. Is a knockoff, but oh well. Also has an AGP aftermarket wastegate actuator here, and obviously the bypass valve is blocked off. So why would you not want to run these lines? Well, first thing is you can run an AGP wastegate on your stock solenoid if you're properly tuned for it and you have the lower PSI spring. But this car does not have that, and this is hooked up to a hard plastic line going back up to the front using the stock solenoid, spiking over 20 PSI, no good. Aftermarket blow-off valve hooked up to the pink line. Okay, this shouldn't be. This is only to be used with the factory blow-off valve, if that's what you want to call it back here. That's not to be used with aftermarket, so getting rid of that shit. Just deleting this whole thing because it's not necessary. Tip sensor. Does it need to reference boost? Does it need to be connected with the red line here? No, it doesn't. As far as the tune goes, the tip sensor will read barometric pressure, and that's all it really needs to read. If you have an aftermarket tune, or at least one from us, it doesn't reference this versus the map sensor at all. It's just used as barometric pressure for a base for the speed density. And then we have this line here, where what is that going to? God knows what, you know. Obviously the intake is out of here on both cars, but you know, this is going to the intake on this car. But if you look back to where it tees off, it's hooking into the compressor housing. Now why in the hell would an intake need a direct port to the turbo? All you're doing is pushing boost into the intake. That makes no fucking sense. This line will just get the fuck out. Now, as far as these AGP wastegates go, this one is a newer model. This has the hex style rod with a locking jam nut here. Whereas on this car, it has the older style 2 nuts. Instead of this, obviously this rod's a little bit thinner. Whichever one you have doesn't really matter. Again, they both work exactly the same. So step one on this car is going to be simply unplugging all of these from everywhere, because we're going to start over fresh. And step two, removing this. I usually like to keep the solenoids just in case somebody wants to go back to this in the future. Take these, and there's a little hole here behind the headlight. You can stick them right in here. They sit nicely in there. They don't come out. This needs to go back where it belongs. Like I said, I don't know why the hell it's here. Cool story. Also need to check on this wiring. Why somebody tapped into this, because this should not be tapped into, but you know, this car is pretty cool like that. So just something to note here. Kind of like the other video, this one actually has that pad on here to make sure it's not touching the positive battery terminal. As far as this intake goes, somebody swapped the couplers. That's not the one that's supposed to be on here. As well as turned it into a short ram and shoved the intake air temperature sensor into the filter. Obviously you don't want to be doing this. I don't know why somebody did this, but when you shove this in here, all this, since it is a Spectre filter, all this shit is just gonna, you know, turn to dust. It's all gonna get sucked right into the fucking turbo. You do not want to do that. So don't be stupid and put your sensor in here. You don't need to do that. If anything, you're gonna want to drill a 3/4 inch hole in here, get the grommet from us, put it in there, and be set. Alright, as you can see, this is cleaned up a little bit. The vacuum solenoids aren't here anymore. Neither is the tip sensor. The tip sensor is back up over here. The wiring checked out fine. No more line going to that. The red line that used to go to the intercooler pipe has now been blocked off because we don't need that. It's not going to the sensor anymore. Normally what I would do with this port here is go directly to the blow-off valve, but this blow-off valve is actually junk on this car, so this is going to be replaced later on by the customer or myself at a later date. Back here there's a new line going from the compressor housing to the wastegate actuator. This is 3/16 fuel hose, so it's steel reinforced. You're going to want to use something like this as well as a steel reinforced zip tie or hose clamps back here. The evap line, which you probably can't see because it's so much shit cram here, is teed off. That's actually going to be going up to the intake and having a vacuum on there like it's supposed to. As far as everything else goes, you just don't need it once you're running an aftermarket wastegate actuator and an aftermarket blow-off valve. There's just no need to have it. So this wastegate's obviously hooked up the OG way. You still can use the boost control solenoid from the factory if you want with the lighter spring, but on this car I chose not to do that. This is actually the throttle cable. This is supposed to be going down below the intake manifold. However, somebody was fucking with it and it's not there anymore. Same with this PCV valve hose. This is usually routed underneath all of this and not on top like this is. So this is the final product for now. So this vacuum line is going back to that evap like I talked about. It's got a new cone filter on there. Somebody turned this Mopar cold air into a short ram, so had to cut that down a little bit to make it fit better. Obviously somebody modified the hood to make it fit. So here we are up and running. So this line right here is the O2 voltage. As you can see, it's going up and down. That's exactly what we want to see. Before it was flatlined, so the sensor was dead. In this case, it was because it was running a 3-bar tune with a 1.5 bar sensor for map sensor, which is ridiculous, but that's another story. Either way, this thing's ready to go now. Only thing left to do on it is throw one of our bass tunes on, take it out, and see where it winds up.